Welcome to the Marriage Can Win show. We are your relationship experts. I'm Eric, and this is my beautiful wife, Dr. Sakisha Heilig.
Oh my goodness, you sound so excited. We're so happy to be here with you guys today. We are super excited. As you know, we've been doing series on dating and relationship, but we wanted to put a different spin on it because we connected with an amazing couple, and I think that their story will be a blessing to you. But first, I guess we need to tell you who we are, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Like my husband said, Eric and Dr. Sakisha Heilig, we're the founders of Marriage Can Win, where we educate, empower, and encourage couples to embrace that marriage can win, especially when you focus on three key areas: improving your communication skills, developing sound money management skills, and enhancing your level of intimacy so your marriage can win.
Now, we are so excited, as always, to always have our Marriage Can Win group and friends out there. So what we like for you to do is invite your family and friends to join us. Now, you can start a watch party. You can share us out. And also, once you join, connect with us, also let us know what city and state that you're located in and ask your questions.
Absolutely. So we have a dynamic couple joining us this evening, and I'll share with you a little bit. Our topic for tonight is what? Finding love after divorce. So we want you guys to understand sometimes things happen, life happens, situations happen where things change, but we want to encourage you. There's a, what did they say? A silver lining in the
exactly
a cloud
beneath the clouds. Silver lining in the
something of that nature. My apologies. I'm jumbling my words right now. But tonight we have Phil and Crystal joining us. We're going to have them take a couple minutes and just tell you about themselves, and then we'll dive in so you can help understand how you too can find love after divorce. All right. So Phil and Crystal, welcome. How are you doing this evening?
Good. Thank you for having us. We're happy to be with you.
We are so excited about you guys being on this episode, and we're super excited because you guys have got something special coming up in September. So will you take a moment and just share with everybody a little bit about you, and then we'll release that information to them.
Sure. So I'll introduce Phil. So This is my fiance, my wonderful fiance, Philip Dabney Jr. Phil is a wonderful being. I recognized from the moment I first met him, there was something divine in him. And I fell in love. He is so very smart. He's an attorney here, government attorney. We're both attorneys, but he is a dynamic individual. He is brilliant. He is warm. He's wonderful. And he's enhanced my life and my career in so many ways. And I am so proud to be his fiance, and in 17 days, his wife.
Awesome.
And I'll have to pay her that 50 cents that I promised for. This is my significant and better half, Crystal Rodriguez. And she's a godsend. She's a gift to me. We'll get into the show, but I was married 21 years and I considered it a good marriage. But I learned a lot about me, and I learned because I'm a believer, the Lord allowed me to have yet another opportunity and put me in the right mindset to appreciate the gift that he gave me. This gift next to me is someone who is a go-getter. She's someone who knows how to build. She's someone who knows how to protect. She knows how to love. She knows how to be forgiving, which is important to me. She's, as she already indicated, she's an attorney, but she is Renaissance. That's the most that I can say. She can do just about everything. She's currently chief of staff at one of our local colleges here. She's also just been recently blessed in becoming the diversity chief diversity officer. In fact, she was the first chief diversity officer in the administration currently in our city. it was a new position, and it became a cabinet position, and she was the first to have it. So I have a smoking dynamite, powerful woman, and I'm just grateful to God that He allowed me to be ready and able to keep her and to call her my lover forever. So excited about that.
You know, I'm always so excited to be connected to some powerhouse couples such as yourself. And I'm just like, man, we have been blessed to be able to connect with you guys.
And we feel the same about you.
Absolutely.
I mean, having you on our show was dynamic. You know, people said that's their favorite so far.
That's right.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that we could do that.
I'm excited. I mean, September 13th, I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, just to watch and the way that you guys interact with one another, the way you speak about one another, and the way that you honor one another, to me, that speaks volumes. Because, you know, in this era, sometimes that's not something that's very common. So we want to say, you know, we applaud you guys for doing such an amazing job, for honoring each other and respecting one another. And when I listened to you, one of the things that I heard was that you respect each other's giftings and strengths.
Oh, yes.
Because you were talking about how she's the chief of staff, and you were talking about Phil and his accomplishments. And to me, that speaks volumes, because I know as for our men, they love to feel loved. They love to feel praised. They love to feel supported. And just to hear you guys do that for one another, you know, you're both high-powered individuals and professionals. So that in and of itself brings in a totally different, how do you say it?
Dynamic.
A totally different dynamic to the situation when you're dealing with two professionals. So this is just really amazing. And you talked a little bit, Phil, you talked a little bit about being married for 21 years. And Crystal, can you share with us a little bit about you?
Sure. I was also married before, not quite 21 years, but almost there. And you know, Phil it's sort of like a balance. Phil's experience was a good experience. There's a great relationship there. Mine was a little bit volatile. I was, you know, I felt like the burden of the children was more on me. And so it was a little bit more acrimonious, but we too have grown. And I really have learned how to deal even with that situation by being with Phil and him helping me in terms of engaging. So I'm looking forward to doing a lot of things differently this time, because it's not going to happen again. It's our last time for both of us. And so doing things better. You're older. You learn what you know what you know when you know it.
Now, one of the things that I notice when I'm listening to you guys talk, what do you see as your greatest strength that's coming into this relationship? Because you've both been married before. So a lot of times afterwards, you start to see things a little differently. You perceive things. Sometimes you're like, some people are more attentive. What do you see as your strengths coming into this relationship?
Go first.
Well, I'll say it's the very thing that captured my attention and then my heart. I first of all really appreciate her intellect and her ability to really be a balanced thinker and speaker, because the love I realize that's going to be there, but liking her, that was the one thing that straight out the gate I was captivated by her energy and by her way of just being her natural self. She's truly an organic individual. That is
my favorite word, organic.
And I am very methodical, and so that was something that I realized was missing out of my life, the ability to really be natural in and how I am and who I am. And I had not experienced it until I met Crystal. So that was the strength that I saw.
So I got to tell you how we met. It's really a funny story. So Phil walked into my office. He was preparing to run for a judicial position, and we didn't know each other. And he walked into my office, And Phil sometimes can have this air about him, right? So he walked into my office looking for a mutual friend of ours. What I didn't know was that this mutual friend said, hey, meet me, here. But he sort of walked into my office, and I joke, and I'm like, he walked in and almost was talking to me like I was the secretary. So I had to like tell him, like, turn around and look at whose name is on the door. And so I had his reputation as an attorney had preceded him, and we met, but our mutual friend was also coming to meet me. So he was sort of trying to multitask. He was going to kill both meetings at the same time, or at least in the same area. And this friend is his best man for this wedding, because it's because of him that we met.
Yes, he is.
And I am this ball, of energy, and Phil is very, and I don't mean, even when I say rigid, sometimes we mean that people say that in a bad way. It's not in a bad way. He's very methodical. He's very thoughtful. He's very introspective. And me, I'm like, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm talking to Rich, and Rich, the third person, is also an attorney. So I'm talking to him, and Phil's at this time like, do you need me to step out? I'm like, well, no, you're here now, so you might as well just sit over there. And that's how we met. And so I think that some more strengths are, recognizing the balances, right? Because I see a lot of things in Phil that he has that I don't have. And I see a lot of things that I have that he doesn't. For me, though, it's really wonderful to be able to have learned, because I'm so very independent. My ex-husband was Marine. He was always deployed. He was always gone. And I'm very independent, but I've learned how to depend on those things that Phil does better than me. And it, when I got over the nervousness, it feels really good to say, I know he's going to take care of that,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Now what you have and what I'm hearing is you learn your strengths as a team. And so now you're focusing on each other's strengths, and also each other's weakness, so you can be the strength to each other. And that's a great teamwork, and that's a great foundation to have and to recognize, so you can build upon that as you grow into your marriage.
Right.
And that is important. And also, too, we're just coming into this time very keenly aware of not wanting to divorce again, right? Not wanting to have to go through that process again. Because it is, no matter what the circumstances are, whether it's should have happened, it's a grieving. It's a part of you that's lost. And we don't want to do that again, and we don't want to do this again. So we spent, our wedding will be on our 7-year anniversary. So and that means a lot. And so we put a lot into it, and we put a lot into it, and we want to continue to put that investment into our relationship.
Wow. Well, you know what I think is amazing, that you recognize what has transpired and what you'd like to do differently. Because that's kind of a segue into one of the questions I wanted to ask you. So I wanted to ask you, what area do you feel would be your greatest development that going into the marriage? Is there something that you recognize that you did before that you would like to do differently, or you learned, okay, well, now that I found love again, I know I'll be mindful, maybe not to do this so much? Because you like you mentioned before, you said you admire the fact that that if something is going on, Phil will handle this. So it seems like you're opening up, being more vulnerable, and being more willing to I don't say depend on him, or you feel more confident in depending on him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense.
Okay.
I'd have to say I'm going into, and I'm still learning.
Okay.
And I shared this when you guys were on our show, because how I found you, I Googled how to communicate in marriage better. And you guys popped up, and you were pretty high. I
thank you.
I'm still learning. But I'm wanting to go into this being a better communicator. Part of that is vulnerability, but another part of that is also learning what his language is and how he can hear me, and him learning what my language is so I can hear him. we don't communicate. We are total opposites when it comes to communication.
We don't communicate as well as we should.
We don't communicate the same way, is what I meant to say. We don't communicate the same way. I am extremely passionate, and I've gotten better, but it's easy for me to go from 1 to 60 in like that. And I'm remembering and here, and I'm bringing up what happened now, but I'm also bringing up, oh, when you said this, and don't forget that. And then, I mean, imagine, first of all, we're both attorneys, so just arguments are litigation. The best arguments are litigation.
Right.
But for me, I'm very emotional.
Okay.
You know, you come into any relationship and you bring experiences that you learned growing up and through life. And so I have had to be very protective of myself. And so in my communication, a wall goes up. And so I feel sometimes that I have to be protective of myself from him.
Oh, okay.
And that's not always helpful. In fact, it's not helpful at all, right? Because we need to communicate. And I'm still learning how to better communicate by saying, and one of the things I have to tell myself is, you are not my enemy.
Gotcha.
And it kind of brings me down, and it stops me. So I'm still learning. And I'm you know, I look at your stuff, and I can't wait to get my copy of the book. And but that's how I actually connected with you guys, how to communicate better.
Oh.
Well, it sounds like you have some good steps and strategies
Absolutely.
on learning how to effectively communicate with each other. And what I like and what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that you're both willing and able and putting the effort in to, you know, to do better in the area of communication, because that's really the first battle that it always in any couple is the willingness to do it and to put the effort. It's one thing to recognize, but if you don't put the effort in to find out how to communicate to your spouse, you know, and learn the love language, you know, so I know hers was affirmation, but now it's different.
And as a couple, you grow over time and you evolve. So that's something just to be mindful of, you know. Before, for me, it was acts of service. You vacuum the house. Oh, you're the bomb as far as a husband. But for him, it's more physical touch. Right. So if everything I'm doing for him is more geared towards acts of service, that's doing absolutely nothing for him. Right. He's not feeling loved. So just learning to be intentional about communicating with him in a manner in which it spoke love to him. And that was hard, very difficult for me, because I brought that baggage from the past, being that my father was a warden at Rikers Island, really rigid, really like, you know, by the book, you know, not a lot of affection, you know, he might, you know, kind of pat you on the back and then, you know, walk away type thing. So for him, you know, I did what I thought was right, you know, you made sure you cook somewhat, you know, that's the whole story. So cleaning, paying the bills, taking care of the kids, and it's good. But for him, that was like, gee, thanks. So I, you know, I really, really admire the fact that you recognize that's an area in which you could improve, and then you're working towards that, and you're being intentional, and that sets you leaps and bounds, you know, ahead in the situation. So to me, I really, really admire that about you guys. Yes,
and I also see how you say it, a joyfulness, a playfulness too. Yeah. So while you're learning each other, make it fun. Make it, you know, don't make it so. Like you said, you're on the same team. Yeah, and, and the thing is that you're both are professionals, and you're starting a business, and so you know, so learning that communication is only going to better your relationship, because you're going into roles where you're going to be busy and you're going to be focused on your careers. And also I hear too that you both as individuals, you have your separate goals for each yourselves, and then you have your couple, your marriage goals, your as a couple. So you know that is always something great, because you don't ever want to have to resent each other because you know you feel like you're stifling me from my individual goals, and then I'm stifling you from your individual goals. But you're being very supportive, and I heard that at the beginning, and how you were talking about how you really enjoy and you're really proud of each other for your accomplishment, and that I really like that.
I think it's really important that couples are mindful of. You're individuals. I mean, as well as you're a couple and you get married, but you still have individual identities. We were each on this earth with a purpose. And then you guys will have something that you're going to accomplish together as a couple. But being able to respect those differences and support each other, that's really, really key. So I have a
question. Been phenomenal. And you know, because I'm a person, I constantly have to be doing something. So even in my 9-to-5 job, but I also have my side hustle, as I call it. I mean, he was very encouraging in the beginning, like, you could do it, and here, let's get you a website, and you could do this. Let's get you, you know, formed and everything, and your entity. So he's been really great. Now, sometimes I get into it, and he's just like, no, which one is the full-time job? But you know, he's been very, very supportive, and he recognizes that hustle in me.
So. One of the questions that I want to ask is, so what can you actually provide some advice to other couples who have, you know, they're looking to try to find love after divorce? So what kind of, because, you know, not everybody can do what you guys have accomplished.
Right. Well, I can say for me, I wasn't looking for love.
Okay.
I was in a place where I was needing to resolve many issues in my life, and quite honestly, some of the issues I needed to resolve, I didn't realize actually until I had joined with Crystal, and so just sort of going back to the first question, and I think it actually provides some insight as to the second question. One of the developments for me was learning some of the, I guess the best way to put it, we just had a show we had named Legacy of Hurt. And one of the important things, at least for me, was appreciating what was in fact in the bag that I was carrying in order to be able to deal with it in the next relationship. And I can tell you, and I'm sure Crystal can tell you in far more colorful terms, I really dealt with, and I'm not embarrassed to say, but I dealt with a spirit of infidelity.
Okay. And
it was truly a stronghold. And it was of the type that I was able to I guess, avoid dealing with it or even not address it because I was in a relationship that accepted it, if not permitted it. So when I entered into this relationship with Crystal, whether I communicated these things to myself or not, I just felt that there were things that were just normal and natural in a man, in a Black man. And I realized I was unable to realize the impact that it not only had on Crystal in terms of her trust in me, in terms of her dealing with issues of trust and having me basically fortify those walls that she had up towards me, but also I had the opportunity to learn a great deal of my own insecurity. And I think that was significant for me in my development and even being ready to not only be married to Crystal, but to have a healthy relationship. So that was the challenge. And I'll say for your listeners, you could give me a number of things that I would need to do. I would do them for a season and then stop doing them. So I realized altogether it was nothing but the grace of God. And first me putting it in his hands, and then he actually showing me through the Spirit how to break this stronghold. And all the strength came from his word, and all the strength came from truly meditating on his word and realizing that even how my wiring was needed to be changed. And I just needed to be simply a willing vessel. But he did a wonderful work in me in removing that spirit of infidelity. So that was something that was substantial for us. We probably would have been married a year earlier, but God was not done yet. And I'm thankful, and I hope that my baby is thankful, but I'm just I was just talking to her earlier. I'm excited in terms of being able to, almost as a spectator, to see what God has done in my life that would make me a better man, but also a better partner for Crystal. So that was a great deal of the development in us going into what I hope and believe to be a very happy marriage.
See, here I have to tell you though, because God does work, and that phrase, as a believer, God works in mysterious ways, is really not cliche, because the way he even communicates that story is so very Shakespearean. But see, what he won't tell you is how God put me in his life and how I found out things. And I grew up in the hood, right? So I always have this saying, like, don't let the suit fool you. So I was it was different than before. When I found out certain things, here I am rolling up on him, hopping out the car, like, oh, no. And he's like, oh my goodness. And how am I dealing with this? And at every moment saying, this isn't appropriate. You need to know how this makes me feel. You need to realize how this gets you into this. And so really not letting it go.
Right.
Right.
Because I would want to run. In fact, most times I would just run from the literal circumstance, but certainly run from dealing with that actually.
Right. But we, and there were times, I have to be honest, and it was God that I just wanted to run. But this 7 years hasn't been a honeymoon. It hasn't been all smooth sailing. There's been some really tough times, and he brought baggage, but I also brought in baggage. I brought in abandonment issue baggage. I brought in insecurity baggage. I brought in things too. And many years it took for us to no one comes in a relationship just bearing everything.
Yeah.
And it took many years for us to say to each other, this is me, flawed in everything, and these are my issues. And this is me, flawed in everything, and these are my issues. And, how can we work on them collectively and individually?
Wow. Now you said two key points, and it takes me back to like one of our pillars, which is communication and dealing with encouraging couples to express what you expect. And just listening to you, it's, you have that open level of communication where you're saying, I'm in the relationship. These are my expectations. Oftentimes we expect our partner to read our minds, to assume or to know what we want, know what's acceptable and what's not. Mm-hmm. And be it with Eric or even couples we work with, we had to explain to them, your spouse is not a mind reader. Yeah. As women, sometimes we anticipate the needs of our spouses or a significant other, but we are not mind readers. There are certain things where you just straight have to tell me, this is what you need from me. And the same applies vice versa. Right. This is what I need from you. Because if not, you find yourself walking around on eggshells. You find yourself in a position where you're not happy because you're not able to express who you are, express how you feel. And once you open those doors of opportunity and start to have those dialogues, start having that communication, then the two of you can get on the same page. So that's something that I'm noticing. And then also the importance of setting boundaries in the relationship. Sure. If not, if you don't establish boundaries, what happens?
Right.
Just like you have kids. We have two teenagers at home. We had to set boundaries. Okay. This is acceptable and this is not acceptable. If not, you're in a place where things are being allowed to take place and it's inflict damage on the other person.
Sure. Yeah. One person is expecting one thing and the other person's, they don't know what you expect.
Right. And like you said, for him, it was accepted. Right. So it was never really checked. And then here you come into another relationship, and I'm sure that the way that I was and where I was reacting, that was shocking for him because he's like, wait a second, I've never had to deal with this before. So that's important.
Well, that's all. That's a sign of a healthy relationship, because once you can recognize and in yourself what's going on that needs to be changed, and you can speak about it and make the effort towards it. That's the maturity of a relationship, because we had to do the same thing. Many a times over the 26 years of being together. We had to recognize and own up to our own issues and now once you own up to the issues and you let the other person know about it, then now you can effectively work towards, you know, on those issues, so it won't become a divider.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's really key. You brought something up, recognizing the challenges and be willing to do the work to address them. That's really, really important.
Yeah.
So what was, I'd say, the greatest obstacle, like Phil has shared with us an obstacle.
So,
What's one of your greatest obstacles that maybe you've had to overcome? I know you mentioned abandonment issues.
Yeah.
Crystal.
Yeah.
If you're going to find love after divorce, sometimes you have to recognize, okay, what transpired in the first relationship that I should not bring in or needs to be addressed before I go into another situation.
Mm-hmm. I think mine was in to much later, less degree, but toxic communication.
Okay.
I grew up with toxic communication. I was communicated with by my mother. What I would say is in a toxic way. And I would communicate with Phil that way, even though he recognized that I was aware enough that I don't communicate with my children that way. But so while I recognized it as such a wrong that I didn't want to repeat it in the lives of my children, I would with him. So for me, toxic communication was extremely difficult to overcome. And what I felt was even toxic. What he felt was toxic. I'd be looking at him like, what? I didn't say anything. And, you know, we had to really go through that and learn that the way that I was indoctrinated to communicate in a relationship was not going to be healthy in our relationship. So I had to, learn respect. And it's, I don't want to say it's embarrassing because I'm glad that I'm learning and it's still a work in progress. But what I thought was, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm taking care of this. That's not enough. I can't communicate to him in a way that I think is harmless or that was harmless growing up for me. But I had to really look at it and see how it was harming how he related to me and harming our relationship and putting something between us and creating a divider.
So what person or persons had the greatest level of impact or influence on you growing up that shaped how you see marriages today?
I'd have to say for me, it's twofold. So I've been blessed with a stepdad. So my stepdad is still in my life, even though my mother and him are not together, but he raised me. And I've often referred to him as one of God's first demonstrations of favor in my life, because I wouldn't be where I am without this man in my life. So how he was had an extreme impact on me, even if it was how he shouldn't be, in a relationship. There were things that were taught. And then his mother and father, so my grandparents, that was impactful. My grandmother is a wise woman. She's funny. She's spicy. She's still with us. My grandfather had passed, but even in the stories that she tells about him, but how she dealt with him in their relationship, that was extremely impactful. And my mom and how she was with my dad, I didn't see it as impactful really until I got older, but it wasn't impactful in a positive way. It was really a very negative way. And I had to see how I had to unlearn certain things, but those relationships were extremely impactful to me.
Okay. All right, Phil, what about you?
For me, definitely my parents, extremely impactful, both for the great and for the worse. Impactful because I certainly had bought into the structure of family. I'm one of 6 siblings. I'm the oldest. And just in terms of how my father was not only the man of the house, but how my mother always pointed to my father, to us, in terms of this is the man of the house. And it gave us all roles in the house. And I would say that was impactful for me because it really geared me towards family. I'm very much family oriented, and I think the length of the marriage. I have many couples in my family who easily go 20, 30 years or to death in terms of marriage. So I'm actually sort of trained and accustomed to longevity as for marriage. In terms of the, I believe the impacts that I had to unlearn. I did not until I was older appreciate that my parents were people beyond their roles as mom and dad. They never argued in front of us. My brothers and sisters and I would laugh because when their bedroom door was closed, they were either expressing love or they were fighting. And we saw neither. So we would, of course, assume and guess that it's all love in that bedroom, and that means it was all love in the house. And it wasn't until I had my own household did I become to realize and appreciate some of the rigors of their marriage. Unfortunately, in learning it so late, I didn't develop the skill set in terms of how to really deal with problems that, quite frankly, are probably regular problems in a marriage. But because I was so sold to the fairy tale idea of my parents having a perfect marriage, and in fact, me coming from a perfect household, I found that it had made me very judgmental in terms of how I would see other households or how I would enter into a household that I would be a part of, and be quite rigid in my concept and quite rigid in my understanding as to what a house supposed to look like and what it is. So I think in that, now of course they did all of that out of love. So I can never say there was the absence of that. But even out of love, some of that sheltering actually proved a challenge for me in my later years. So.
Wow. And I know we talked. Thank you so much for that, because I'm thinking about some of the things that you were saying, and we talked earlier about some of the suggestions that you would have for other professionals that are looking to find love after divorce. But is there a piece of advice that you would give to perhaps your younger self or someone that's younger and they're looking to date and then eventually get married? What piece of advice would you offer to them?
For me, my younger self, or people like me, I would say spend more time falling in love with yourself and having a relationship with yourself.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I would have taken more time getting to know what it was that I really wanted to do, and loving on me, because that affects how you love other people.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. And I try to think thoroughly before I answer it. But I think the best advice that I would give is that love is the gap filler in many instances in marriage. There are a lot of things that transpire in a marriage, and what you want to be able to lean on and count on always is the consistency and the unconditional love that you would want from your partner. There is no way that we can possibly even believe that we won't have problems, that there won't be major problems that we have to contend with together. Sometimes we do feel isolated and alone in these problems that we have to contend with, because sometimes they're external to our marriage. But I think appreciating and recognizing that love is the glue, just as much as respect is the glue. So say it again.
Friendship.
Oh yeah, my baby told me to say friendship, and I agree with him. Friendship just as well, because it's something we just heard another couple say this, and it really struck a chord with me. You love your spouse every day, but there'll be some days that you just don't like them. you know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and knowing that that's okay, you know, because you're falling back on the fact that, well, she's got my back. No matter how much she's driving me crazy today and in this minute, I know she's got my back, you know. So believing that I think that really can carry you to the next day.
And sometimes it's that friendship that's carrying you through.
Mhm.
And one of the couple he's talking about is one of his the husband is his frat brother, and the wife she's my soror. But you know, he was saying sometimes I have to talk to her and say, I don't want to talk to you, my wife. I want to talk to my friend.
Yeah.
And that's important, because some days that'll be what keeps us together and
Strengthen us.
yeah, and carry us through.
You know, and that's really, really important, because as spouses, we wear, and particularly I'm just talking about the women, we wear lots of hats. You know, you're a wife, you're a mom, you're an attorney, you know, you wear so many hats. And then sometimes we have to recognize which hat to put on and when. Because right now I'm upset with my husband, but my he's like, I need to talk to my best friend, you know.
Right.
Be able to put aside how, you know, I got on your nerves, I said something I shouldn't have done. We understand all that. But as my best friend, you know, you have to be able to talk to one another. And I think that's really, really key in relationships, recognizing, you know, okay, let me put off the wife hat, because right now I'm in that high emotions, low intelligence space right now.
And sometimes it goes with the not being able to mind read. You got to say, okay, what hat do you need me to put on right now to have this conversation?
Okay.
What exactly do you need?
And that, you know what, that is okay, because it's like, I need to talk to my friend, and it's all right. Because as a friend, I might respond differently than I would as your wife. As your wife, I'm like, look, now you know. But as a friend, it's like, I can understand your frustration. I can understand that. And it gives us a sense of peace. Because even when I'm mad as heck at him, I tell my kids that mommy and daddy, that we get upset with one another, but I'm still not gonna let anybody bother him. I'm not gonna let anybody do anything to him. So regardless of mommy's upset with daddy right now, I know this person better not cross this line. You don't talk like that. You don't, and that's that friendship aspect, because I could be all in my feelings as a wife, but as your friend, no, you don't cross that line. And understanding that, and that's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is good.
All right. So I mean, I have so much running through my head. I'm trying to.
Well, let's hit upon this question here. So now that you've to this point now, and so someone else as a couple that's looking at this show, what are some of the things that you would do different now, looking back, that would help someone in your same shoes coming to this point, that you know now you make a different choice now?
This might surprise Phil.
Okay.
We admitted this to y'all the last time, because you know we gonna heal it in 17 days, but we live together, so we shacking, right? But I don't think I would move in with him, at least so as early as I did. I would probably not have done that.
Okay.
And I think that what's probably coupled with that is I probably would have given myself a little bit more time before I committed to a serious relationship with Crystal, because I wasn't ready and didn't realize that I wasn't ready. And it was, again, by the grace of God, I had proposed to her 2 years ago. And we were actually planned to be married the 13th of September 2019. But there was a whole lot of work that had to be done.
Okay.
So we spoke in we spoke in the faith of it happening, but the reality wasn't something that we were brave enough to embrace.
We weren't ready.
You know,
we weren't ready.
So the time element is very crucial for the individual preparation in order to make that union and truly embrace the idea of oneness. You know, that it really took time, and it's taking time in terms of really appreciating that what oneness actually looks like. And it becomes a challenge when you have two professional individuals with with aspirations that are not in the same arena. And quite frankly, even aspiration and ambition may look different between the two of them, and or the two of us, you know. So really taking the necessary time, not only to walk through that evolution, but to communicate the walk through the evolution, you know.
You know, and I have to say, I think it was today. I texted to him. You know, I'm really excited about what's after. So I'm recognizing September 13th is not a magic day. It's not the end of the journey. In fact, it's just the beginning of a new journey with new roles. But I said to him today, it feels right. And last year, both of us knew it didn't feel right. There were things that still had to be worked on.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we loved each other.
We did, but it just wasn't.
Right.
Either we weren't ready. And if you ask me how I felt on this day a year ago, like you can go through memories and Facebook and they show you your memories, I probably would tell you, no, I wasn't ready to. But today, I know that I am, and that we are. And so I think it was today that I just texted you that I said I'm excited because this just feels right now. So
my response is, as long as we continue to do the good work, you know, we will be happy and successful.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that speaks volume to couples now that are watching the show, and also because now it lets them know they see someone else that's, you know, there's no pressure, and they see where someone else took the time out to not to rush into things when it doesn't feel right, when they know that there's some things that they have to do, like transitioning from, you know, I to we, and that takes some time when your whole life you're so used to, you know, being just I and only worrying about yourself, and taking the selfless out, you know, the selfish out and become selfless. It takes time to transition. And so now couples, when they see that and they hear that, they're like, oh, wow. You know, they may be thinking about getting married. They may have a date set. And so they might say, well, you know what, we might need to maybe call Eric and Sakisha and start a coaching and get some premarital counseling, because we need some work before we start moving down that line. So now they feel more comfortable because they heard what you're saying.
And it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing because, and I think I said courage. I was thinking courage at the time. It's a scary thing because there's also the fear that it might not happen.
Wow.
Right.
So you don't want to speak it. And you feel like you're on the course where you want to be, and you got this feeling like we might be going too quickly, but if we slow down, then we might go another direction. So
that's where faith comes in.
That's a fear that,
right? But that's where faith comes in, and knowing that God is going to take you in the direction you need to go, and ultimately whatever is meant to be is going to be.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that you recognize that, because many couples will allow fear to set in. It's like, if we don't go ahead and get married now, we won't get married.
Absolutely.
Well, if you know there's some issues that you need to address prior to getting married, then to me, it's wisdom to make sure you set that solid foundation, work through things. Now, of course, no marriage is perfect. There's always going to be a challenge here and there. But if you know that there are some issues that, look, if we rush into this now, this might not be the best idea for us, then it makes more sense to say, hey, let's take a little bit of time and work on some things, work out these kinks, address these issues. So now when we go forward and we do say, I do, we're both confident and this is what we need. This is what God's calling us to do, versus doing something out of fear.
Right.
Do stuff out of fear, it's not going to work anywhere, because that means you just swept that stuff underneath the rug. And guess what? It's going to keep piling up.
It's going to resurface.
It's going to come to the surface.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Turns into a big eruption, kind of like when couples are upset with one another. You keep blowing it off, and then it keeps piling up and piling up. And all of a sudden, one of you, explodes, and you're like, "Where did that come from?"
Right.
That big pile over there that you created,
hiding, and
you've been building. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yes, it is okay for everybody out there watching and catching the replay. It is okay when you're planning to get married, you're planning to get engaged. It is okay to say, let's have a longer engagement than we anticipated, because I'm still working on some challenges, or we're still working on some challenges, and we need to have a game plan to know how to tackle this if it comes up again.
Yeah.
Right.
There may be some trust issues that need to be built up first,
Yeah.
and then you need to know how to tackle that and find out the red flags so we can get rid of those red flags.
Yeah.
So that is great. That is great advice. So
Go ahead.
we'd like to know who in your past that you find that that you look up or has been the greatest impact in your life, and that you still it still affects you today.
With regards to relationships and marriage, or just in general?
I'd say in general.
In general.
In general.
Well, this is sort of odd, but my 10th grade teacher
Okay.
in high school, who saw something in me that I did not see myself, and he pulled me out of regular classes and put me in all honors classes. And he didn't just put me in there and leave me there. What he did was he helped me to master certain skills in my academics, and I think he also helped me to be a far more introspective thinker, and consider that I'm a true Libra, I guess. Consider the other side always, So that has been impactful for me in all of my relationships, and I owe that to P.F. Feinstein, who died of Parkinson's over 15 years ago, but he still has an impact in my life.
All right.
Crystal?
Wow. I was hoping that one person would just jump out while Phil was talking, but the experiences in my life, having grown up in the inner city and the things that I've been through, I mean, that could be a whole other show. And at each stage, I can think of someone who was impactful. There was my Auntie Lane, who has gone on to glory, but she was there when my mother couldn't be there, and she stepped in and raised me as her own. But then there was my one drill instructor, Veronica Hawkins. When I hopped off the bus, this edgy girl from Buffalo, New York, she was right in my face hollering at me, and I'm like, whoa. And my arms, when I graduated from boot camp, I tell Philly's story, my arms were just wonderful because she made me do so many push-ups because my mouth was crazy. So she was impactful. And then, there were people when I came back to Buffalo, it was a lot of people knowing my story. It was like, she tried to go to law school. She's not going to be able to finish. But then there were those, there's a local judge who would always tell me, let them underestimate you and just let your work prove it. My now best friend, who's going to be the matron of honor at my wedding, she was given to me as a mentor in law school. She was very motivating. So I've been blessed with a number of people who had profound effects, but were put in my life at the right time when I needed them for what I was going through.
Oh, that's good.
So what is the one piece of advice that someone has given you that just sticks out? It doesn't have to be relationship. Doesn't have to be related to relationships. It could be related to your job, your future. What's just that one thing that just sticks out? Or just
For me, it's giving forward.
Okay.
I have bought into fully the idea of being a bridge builder, and I feel that I have a duty and responsibility to invest in someone. And investment means just exactly that, not just lip service, but time and even sometimes your money to help them get or reach their potential, and then encouraging them or actually putting them under contract to do the same for someone, what I've done for them. And that's something that I hold very dear and really important to me to do that.
Awesome.
I think where hard work beats talent any day, but also living in your purpose realizing what your purpose is and living and working in your purpose has been always important to me.
So, what is next for Phil and Crystal?
Well, we've got this wedding that's keeping me up at night. I look sleeping just fine. But we've got that coming up, and it's nothing. We're not having a big wedding. It's very small and intimate. Our closest friends and family, those who have really been for us. We've both been cognizant of the people that have been for us over the years. We're honeymooning in Martha's Vineyard. God willing that they keep it safe. I'll be okay if they don't let me back. Just let me leave. As far as, and then we've got some campaigning coming up.
Yeah.
We've got some campaigning coming up, and
I'm running for judge next year.
Oh, awesome.
So we're gonna do that again. And this time trusting that timing is the right timing. Again, timing being an issue. So we've got that, and I'm looking forward to him being in the front and me being in the background and really supporting him. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
That's what she's saying.
Oh, I'm so happy about it. Because he don't even know we got a bet. I said, because when you get on the bench, I want to be able to do this, and this, and this, and we've got a deal.
Awesome. So would you also like to share with the audience maybe websites or addresses or?
Because you guys have an amazing story, and
Yes.
I think it speaks volumes to our listeners. So those out there that are listening, either live or via the replay, they're like, "Hey, you know what? I want to connect with Phil and Crystal because you have a broadcast. Can you share with them a little bit about the?
Yeah, and we didn't share that website, but we're on Facebook. We're not the Hilux yet, but we have a Facebook page, and
Who can be the Hilux but the Hilux?
Right, there you go. I doubt anybody would find me under how to communicate better. It's called the Empowered Couples Podcast. And why we chose that name, we sat down at a picnic one day, and we wanted to hash out some things. We wanted to seek out couples that could give us advice as we were traveling to our nuptials. But people always look at us and they say power couple, and sometimes it's like, but we'd rather be an empowered and an empowering couple to, a blessing to other people. So that's why we chose Empowered Couples Podcast. So it's on Facebook. We're not actually a podcast yet, but it's live. We're on every Monday at 8. And we've had some phenomenal couples on, and they've had varied experiences. You've joined us. We've had people who talked about blended families. People who coming from just this past week was really talking about living with legacies of hurt and how we bring in certain things from how we were raised into our relationship. So they can look that up on Facebook, Empowered Couples. They'll see Phil and my picture there. And we'd love for you to join us and look at some of the replays. Your show has been the favorite so far.
Oh, that's great.
A couple of people have said, we need them back to talk about the financial empowerment. I was like, oh yeah, we
anytime.
And so people have also said, are you going to continue this after? We might. We might continue it after, talking about maybe from that perspective. This is leading up to being married. So now talking about being married, and that is a true different perspective.
Oh, yes.
Well, we definitely want plenty of pictures from the wedding. We're going to be following you. Tag us as soon as of course, we know you're getting married, but a couple days after, enjoy the honeymoon. Tag us with some pictures so we can share it.
Definitely will.
We believe that your story is so inspiring. So
it is.
In closing, can you guys just give like a few words of wisdom to couples out there, to help them understand how marriage can win? Because you've been through it. Now you're like, okay, I found this person. I found love after divorce.
Yes.
Can you share with them just how marriage can win?
Well, I'll share with you what the Lord gave me.
Okay.
As I already indicated, I was dealing with a really breaking a cycle, if you will, and a stronghold. And the Lord spoke very clearly to me. He said, look at me. I'll take care of her.
Wow.
And I think when I begin to realize that he needs to be the head of the house, he needs to be the focal point of the house, all things come together because God is a God of order.
Yeah.
And trusting that and trusting the process allows you to better deal with those days when there's disruption, because he tells you, refocus back on me. And I'm telling you, he said it to me when we would fight. He would say, you took your eyes off me and you looked at her. And that's why something popped off. So your faithful walk with him, he'll bring you right back to where you need to be. And that's having your eyes on him. That's all happening.
I would say never stop learning and never stop investing in yourself and improving yourself. There's always something to learn. There's always something you don't know. And there's always room for improvement in yourself and in your relationship. And that's important.
Wow. Now, we talked about the Empowered Couples, and you said that website, but you said there's another website. So do you want to share with our listeners?
Well, we didn't even get a chance to talk about, because I think we were intending to talk about my entrepreneurial side.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As, my side hustle and my passion is I love helping especially female business owners, but small business owners get set up the right way. So I'm the go-to attorney for helping businesses get started, but also helping them have the contracts that they need in place, because you have to be protected legally. And so my website is Crystal Clear Esquire. So Crystal Clear ESQ, a play on my name. And then all the products that I have for small businesses, because my mission is to make the legal side easy, but also affordable.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
I love that.
awesome.
So for all of our listeners, make sure you take note of that website, crystalclearesq.com. So we want to just thank you guys again for just spending time with us.
Oh, yes.
This has been a blessing to us. We definitely want to stay connected. Definitely. Congratulations in advance for the wedding.
Thank you very much.
We're super, super excited for you. And we're always here if you guys need anything, any way that we can help. We love your spirits, and we just love just being able to be open and transparent with you guys and have candid conversations. Because I think
we love it. We'll be circling back around after the honeymoon, because we need to get our financial, foundation, look at some things and examine. And I definitely know you can help.
And plus, we got to do this thing called marriage now. So there's that.
There's that.
Gotcha. All right.
Well, for all of you Marriage Can Win family out there, we appreciate you, as well as always following us every Tuesday night on the Marriage Can Win show at the Love Radio Network. And also, you're able to hear us on Alexa. Just say, enable Alexa at Love 24 Network. And you can hear us on Alexa. So here's the thing that you always got to remember, that you can be the change that you want to see in your relationship. So until next time.
Bye.